Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Waste World podcast. I am your host, Gage Edwards, here with you again to bring you another topic that can save organizations both time and money while helping suppliers grow their business. Today, we're diving into the world of cooperative purchasing with Nick Trout, Senior Development Executive at Sourcewell. Sourcewell connects government, education, and nonprofit agencies with competitively solicited contracts that meet public bid requirements. Now that sounds like a lot, but this means agencies can get what they need faster and more cost effectively, and Nick is here to explain to you exactly how that works and why that's a benefit for all parties involved, especially those in the public sector. So in this episode, we're going to explore how Sourcewell contracts work, how they help public sector customers, especially those purchasing waste-related equipment, and how they provide real advantages for suppliers who hold a contract. Like I said, there's a lot to learn today, so make sure you're tuned into this one. And if you're listening on podcasting services like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving a review and rating the show. That would be helpful for us. And check out our YouTube page for the video component of these podcasts so you can see my beautiful face and not just hear me over your car speakers or your headphones or wherever you are. I hope it's a good time. Enjoy the show. Nick Trout is a Senior Development Executive at Sourcewell, where he oversees cooperative purchasing contracts that serve government, education, and nonprofit organizations. In his role, Nick works closely with awarded suppliers, helping them leverage their contracts to close sales faster, expand their customer base, and grow their business. He has deep experience in connecting public sector buyers with the right solutions without the lengthy, costly bid process. Nick, it is great to have you here on the Waste World podcast. How are you today on this beautiful Friday? Hope you're well.
Yes, thank you, Gage. I'm doing very well. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be having this conversation with you. I'm excited.
Yes, we have been chasing this down for a little while. Unfortunately, right after Waste Expo, I still become a busy person, and you as well were busy. And here we are, finally. It's finally nice to catch back up and see what's been going on, see what's going on at Sourcewell. So I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was too long after Waste Expo, but it's one of those things. The waste industry doesn't quit, and so there's always these conversations are always timely, right?
Yeah, that becomes a fun conversation at work where it's like, when do we take vacations? Like, well, it's not. We don't have a lot of wiggle room in the schedule there.
Right.
All right, Nick. Let's just jump into some things. So for people at home who don't know who you are, let's talk about you. Share a little bit about yourself, your background, how you came to be at Sourcewell.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Sourcewell now over 7 years, and while I've been at Sourcewell, I've been in the supplier development role, although we've gone through some different titles. But ultimately working with our awarded supplier community at Sourcewell. And my background really is that sales and recruiting type background. Prior to Sourcewell, I was in that exciting world, and that's a skill set that I still bring over. Here at Sourcewell is helping support the different sales teams and helping facilitate ultimately successful purchases for our participating agencies and the awarded suppliers. So that's we're just trying to ultimately bring these high quality, best in class solutions to these agencies, these public sector agencies, in a particular way, waste departments, public waste departments, so that they're continue to get their important work done.
Excellent. Yeah, my next question was going to be a little bit about how Sourcewell operates, and you're kind of getting there. So, like, what else do we need to know about Sourcewell for someone who's just like, totally out of tune with it?
Yeah, great question, Gage. Great question.
I prepare for this. I'm a professional.
So what I tell folks is if we boil down Sourcewell and Sourcewell contract, what's the whole point of it? Ultimately, what a Sourcewell contract does is it satisfies the public bid requirement for government, education, and nonprofit agencies. So now let's take that and let's put that in context for what it means for the waste industry. You think about our folks who are in public sector waste, right? Your solid waste directors, public works directors, public works departments that are also doing these waste operations, that sort of stuff. Ultimately, you need equipment, right? You need equipment, or you need services, you need technology, whatever it might be. But in the public sector, you're typically not able to just go out and make a purchase, however you see fit, right? You're not able to just go down to the local dealer and say, I need that truck and send me over the PO and away we go, right? There is a public procurement process that needs to be done. So for a lot of solid waste directors, public works directors, what that means is they say, okay, we need 3 new trucks. They do the legwork of, here's what we need as far as capabilities, accessories, options, so on and so forth. Maybe even pick out a brand or something that they think is going to be the best fit. But then, like I said before, they can't just go to the dealer and issue the PO. Then they usually have to go up to their procurement office or their buyer's office and say, hey, okay, we need to buy this. Can we write up a bid? And now we need to publish the bid. Companies are going to respond to that. We have to sit through that whole process. And then at the end of the day, not entirely sure who's going to win the bid, right? And maybe you end up with a company that sort of overpromises and underdelivers. And it can be, there's risk, right? It's risky. And then, of course, the time-consuming piece of it. I know I said that, but to put that in context, a public bid can easily take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, even longer, depending on what's being bought. If it's sort of it really technical pieces or software pieces or stuff like that, it's common for these bids to take a year or longer. And that's time that, if you're a department director or you're an operator in a department, you don't have that solution, right? You're waiting months or a year plus to get vehicles that you probably could have used 2 weeks ago. So the idea with the Sourcewell contract, if you're that solid waste director or whatnot, you say, okay, we need 3 trucks. You can identify who has a Sourcewell contract, right? And, for the sake of, let's say, garbage trucks today, maybe you're thinking, okay, we're maybe looking at a Heil, Labrie, or a curb tender. That's kind of where we're at. Well, you could, connecting through the Sourcewell contract, connect with those local dealers, do your shopping, right? Do your due diligence. And then ultimately, when it comes time to buy, instead of going to your procurement office and saying, hey, can we draw up a bid and go through that whole process, the conversation could be, hey, here's what we're looking to buy. This is available via a Sourcewell contract that I think could satisfy our bid requirement. Can we issue the purchase order through the contract? And you're going to get that equipment a heck of a lot sooner. So that's what the contract does and the benefit for folks in this industry.
Yeah. I almost feel like I need Sourcewell in my daily life for just purchasing things because I need more information. I don't want to wait on things. Somebody needs to help me. So I almost need that extra help in my own life because it can be tricky out there for me buying anything. Let's talk about those public bid requirements. What does that mean? What does that entail?
Yeah, so every agency can have its own unique requirements, but for the most part, every agency is going to usually have these features. There's going to be a level of writing up the specifications of what you're looking to buy, right? Usually, when a bid goes out, what the bid says is we need a truck. It needs these, this capacity, or we're looking for these specifications, blah, 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 list them all out in a fairly detailed way. And so then if you're running your own bid, that means you're responsible for drawing up those specifications. Well, especially for emerging technologies, right? Or, let's face it, everything kind of develops and adapts throughout the years. That can be tough. That can be tough to say, well, how am I going to write bid specifications that effectively cover the type of truck that we need, right? These new technologies and whatnot. So there's usually that piece to it. Agencies usually have advertising requirements. So okay, we have to publish that bid, and this newspaper, and online in these places, and then it has to be up there for a certain amount of time. And if you miss one of those advertising requirements, it's a failed bid. You have to start back over. So, you spend however long getting your bid specifications ready, goes out to advertise, you do that for a couple weeks, and then realize, whoops, we didn't advertise right. Now you kind of got to not start right back from the beginning, but certainly taking several steps back. Once those bids are advertised and it's out there, you have to get a certain number of responses typically. And the magic number I usually see is 3, that an agency will have to get 3 responses. Well, I can go back to 2021, 2022, these agencies were hardly getting any responses, right? Because of
Mm-hmm.
things like, availability of vehicles and supply chain disruptions. So you've got that challenge. And if you don't get enough responses, guess what? It's a failed bid. You're back to square one. You're all over it again. You have to have an evaluation process, right? So once you've got the bids, you have to decide, okay, how are we going to evaluate these? For a lot of agencies, it's who meets minimum specifications and who's cheapest.
Right.
And as I said before, then you can run into suppliers who overpromise and underdeliver, and you end up with low quality equipment that you're going to end up with more downtime than anything on. So you've got those challenges. And then even once you determine here's who we're going to award the contract to, you'll have to sit through a protest period, right? It's a public bid. Folks have to get the chance to protest, and that can unearth other things, right? Things that you probably don't want to deal with. So those are pretty common steps in a bid process that agencies are going to experience.
You ever feel bad for the public sector where they're just like, they have to, all this dirt they have to sift through? It's like, here we go. Got to keep doing more stuff. It's always hoops for me,
Yes. I like to say, public sector is challenging and underappreciated. Solid waste is challenging and underappreciated. So when you have public sector solid waste, right, we've just doubled it.
I almost like, it's almost like a conversation you have with your parents when you're a kid. You're like, oh, I want to grow up and be like an actor. They're like, oh my God, get a real job kind of thing. We're like, oh, I want to grow up and be in the public sector solid waste business. And they're like, oh, please listen, You're going to it's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. Think through this through. But I do like that there is a lot of passion out there that it's glad to see. I'm glad to see all that. So let's talk about public sector saving time and money. These contracts are looking to do that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, as far as the amount of time and money, of course, it's going to vary quite a bit. Right. Depending on what the agency is buying. There are some things that are pretty straightforward, right? And in this space, I think we could probably look at like roll-off carts, plastic carts, right? Yeah, there is some emerging technology and stuff coming into that space that's interesting. But as far as the cart itself, it's a fair. And I guess I should be careful when I say this, because then someone will say, well, here's an example, here's the exception. But, at the end of the day, it should be fairly simple enough to drop specifications for something like that. And so what would a bid process look like for that? Maybe shorter than if you are trying to drop a bid for a brand new route tracking software system to go on your trucks. Right? A bid like that, the highly technical specifications, emerging technologies, those are bids that could take quite a bit longer. And as I've said before, I've seen plenty of those bids that have gone over a year, in fact, well over a year, to wrap those up. So if the Sourcewell contract can satisfy that requirement for you, really, like how much is it worth you to save a month of time? 2 months of time, 3 months of time, 12 months of time. Not to mention, while all of that's going on, over the course of the month or 6 months or 12 months, things are going to change. New technologies are going to come out, right? Or new product lines are going to hit the market that might be more appealing. And you're going to be stuck behind the 8 ball on so much of that stuff. As far as the money piece of it goes, there's 2 ways to think about that as far as saving money. So the first is that a cooperative purchasing contract, like a Sourcewell contract, typically when we establish our contracts, we get very competitive pricing, typically better pricing than an individual agency is going to get when they run out to bid. Now, that's not the case for every agency, every situation out there, but by and large, we found that to be true. Our pricing is as competitive as you would get just about anywhere else. Then you also have the money piece of when you're running that bid, when the procurement department is running that bid, and you're paying for advertising, and you're paying for hours for the staff that's getting put into these bids, and a lot of bids end up requiring overtime hours. So you're paying overtime hours for those bids to wrap up. How much money could you potentially save in those expenses of running your own bid? And there have been some studies conducted out there to try to paint a picture of exactly what that looks like. The reality is, because bids can be so different based on what's being bought, where it's being bought, there wasn't a great number to hone in on, but there were examples where it was $10,000+ in bid related expenses. That's not to buy the equipment. That's the bid related expenses. Yeah. So it can be a lot.
I think in most industries, it makes a lot of sense that this phrase pops up. It's time equals money, right? And in the waste industry, that really seems to hold true, because the time you're able to operate, that's money you can make. The time that you're down, that's money you lose. The more time you spend on these bids process and the hiring, you're losing money. And if you can't get equipment because you don't have a contract like this, you're losing time because you don't have the equipment, and then you're losing money. So it's like, it just seems pertinent to do this. And I don't want to sound like a spokesperson for Sourcewell or anything. That just makes sense to me.
Do it, Gage. Do it.
Hey, I my services are available. I do not come cheap though. So that's
okay. Good to know.
I know there's money in this industry somewhere. All right. I'm gonna ask you broadly. Feel free to answer this however you can. If you can, any success stories that come to your mind from the waste industry when using Sourcewell? Anything you can share with me that way?
Oh, absolutely. Right. It's a lot of it, I would say, coming back to helping directors and these departments, right? Whether it's a standalone solid waste department or public works departments, helping them get at these solutions to improve their operations, right? Yeah. I think especially in like the waste technology space, Sourcewell has had a variety of suppliers that have offered technologies that help with improving waste collections, things like route optimization, verifications, right? Even kind of the new emergence of AI and helping improve waste collections. We have suppliers on contract who can offer those sorts of things. And so, we have a number of major cities who, through the contract, have been able to access these technologies and bring it into their operations, and are telling these stories about how they're operating as effectively, if not more so, than, what it would be for them to bring in a private hauler. Right? It's crazy to think that a public sector solid waste operation could be as efficient and effective as a private solid waste. But there are some cities who've been able to do it because they've been able to get the tools and technology to really streamline that operation and be as effective as possible. So the Sourcewell is about, connecting those best in class solutions to the agencies so they can get after it. And then on the timeliness piece of it too, right? I said earlier, for so many bids, the bid goes out for equipment that the agency really needed, 2 weeks ago, right? Not 6 months later when a bid wraps up, not to mention build times. So the fact that, we can get more trucks to city solid waste operations sooner so they can get back to picking stuff up and making everything cleaner and safer and better for all the citizens and constituents. That right there is just fantastic. Just fantastic. So
now let's dive into a little bit of the benefits for the supplier side of things. What can you tell me there? What's it mean for one of these companies?
Yeah. So if you have a Sourcewell awarded contract, and let me just say as well, the reason our contract satisfies public bid requirements is because ultimately at Sourcewell, we're a public agency. We actually run a public solicitation or public bid to award these contracts in the first place. So if you're a company listening in and you're like, well, I got to go register for Sourcewell, yes, please, I'd be happy to talk with you, but just know that there is a process that, ultimately we'll have to kind of fill you in on and you have to work through. But once you have the contract, think about it this way: if you're a sales rep for let's mix it up today. Let's say you're a sales rep for like a roll-off truck, right? Roll-off container, something like that. And you're talking to a city waste director, let's call him Bob today for conversation's sake. And Bob says, I love this. Like, this truck's perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. We love the fact that you're a local rep. And so if I got questions, it's going to be super easy for me to just, give you a call and let's get work through it. Perfect. Exactly what we want. All right, let's go to the procurement office. Let's ask them to help us get this bid going. Hopefully you respond and hopefully you win, because I really do want to buy this truck from you. Well, now if you're that sales rep and you have the contract, when Bob says, I want to buy this, but I guess it's going to bid, you can say, hey, Bob, I have a Sourcewell contract. Could you talk to your procurement team about using the Sourcewell contract, and that I can make sure you get this truck a lot sooner?
Yeah.
So you're going to be able to close sales a lot sooner. You're going to hopefully close more sales because you're not going to risk in that, there's nothing worse than you get told by a customer, I want to buy from you. It goes out to bid, and then someone comes in and overpromises and steals the business away from you, right? So if you can close the sale sooner and ensure that you're going to close that sale, you're going to get the business, and not someone who steals away a bid, that's all the better for you. And then I've worked with plenty of reps in my time at Sourcewell where it becomes a vehicle to more effectively pursue public sector business. You go from, okay, I talked to Bob at City so-and-so, we use Sourcewell contract, to I'm now more regularly calling on all of the solid waste directors in my territory. And even if they're not looking to buy a truck today, I'm letting them know, if you do need to buy a truck, give me a call, because I was able to really help Bob at the City of so-and-so. The truck was great for Bob, and I have a Sourcewell contract to make the purchasing easy if that's the route you decide you want to go.
Well, I mean, that was, this happens every once in a while where I get like a perfect answer because I kind of answered my next questions too. So like we're rolling right along here. I was going to ask about like waste and recycling equipment purchases and what makes Sourcewell a good fit, but it sounds like we got there. We covered it.
Oh yeah. And I would say, one of the things that Sourcewell has done a good job of really over the past decade is making sure that we have a wide variety of solutions in the waste space, right? So it's, I think for some folks, when they think about cooperative contracts or maybe like state-held contracts or, similar things to what we're doing, in their mind, they think, well, okay, it's going to be pretty limited on what's available, right? I'm going to have pretty limited options. That's not Sourcewell's approach. Sourcewell's approach is, by and large, most of our awarded suppliers are offering their full catalog of options and accessories and models and so on and so forth, which is great. You can make sure that you're getting exactly what you need. You're not trying to put a round peg in a square hole type thing. As well as the wide variety of categories that we're in. So if you need garbage trucks, great, we can help with that. If you need containers, both plastic or metal containers, great, we've got suppliers, we've got solutions. I mentioned the technology piece of it already. On the kind of recycling and repurposing side, right? Let's say you run a compost facility. We've got the shredders and separators and turners and stuff to help you out with that. Maybe even, if you need something that's more kind of like yellow iron, right? Like maybe you need a payloader or a dozer or something like that for work on one of your sites. We've got those suppliers on contract. We really cover the whole range for what your typical solid waste director is going to be looking for. And if it's something we don't have, we're also glad to have the conversation about, okay, can we dig into that? Are there some nuanced or niche pieces of equipment or solutions that we need to pursue to get on contract for you? And so like one of the things I can tell you right away that we're not into yet, this is me being honest, right? This is the honesty session here. We currently we're very limited on where we're at in terms of like sorters and separators within recycling centers, right? The sort of robotic tech for picking out plastic and stuff like that. That's not a space that we've gotten into just yet. But know that we have interest, and maybe someday something that we do pull the trigger on and get available for folks. So
that I will be waiting for those emails so you can let me know when that stuff happens. So, speaking of, like, I know there's so many solutions in waste. There's so many different items that people need. Are you seeing any trends specifically with people who are looking? Are they anyone going after something particular in this sector, or is it just like whatever you need, it's available?
I think, of course, in waste, when you go to conferences and expos, you get the newsletters and stuff like that, right? Like, there's definitely popular themes, right, or catchy themes, right? We hear a lot on the increased recycling efforts, and we hear about the organics capturing, right? And we hear about the increase of AI and optimization and all that sort of stuff, and all that is great. And certainly has led to many operations to add more of those things. But man, at the end of the day, like, there's always a need for trucks, right? Like, there's always a need for dumpsters. There's always a need for carts. So there's definitely those staple things too that everyone needs, and is part of all the operations. So I would say those are our steadies, right? Those are certainly on the Sourcewell end of great interest to lots of folks, is being able to continue to access those things. as well as having those emerging tech conversations too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. Like, it's a good base. Like, everyone's like, oh, this is essential. So we'll just keep trying to procure these. All right. So you've been here 7 years. Sourcewell, where do you see this going forward? What's this evolving piece of Sourcewell look like when it comes to cooperative purchasing? Like, what's the future here?
Yeah, so I mean that's such a great question.
Put the
Cooperative
crystal ball to work, figure
yeah,
it out.
yeah. Cooperative purchasing, as we know it today, it's been around for a while, but I would say the more widespread embracement of it, contracts like ours, is probably really only in the ballpark of like 10, 15 years old, of
Wow.
like that sort of like, again, more widely accepted embracement of it across the U.S. So there's still just a lot of room for growth for contracts like this as they are today. When you, of course, trying to break down the data and the numbers can be hard as far as what are you comparing to, but by and large, the reality is that cooperative purchasing contract spend in the U.S. is still a fairly small fraction of what overall public sector spend is. So I think you're going to continue to see just more a growing comfort level amongst public procurement officers in using contracts like this. The track record continues to develop. More people say, okay, this is proving to be really effective and successful. So more people continue to buy in and want to leverage contracts like this increasingly. And then, of course, the other developments that you're seeing in procurement, public procurement is not immune to technological advancements, right? Just like we talked about kids using AI to help write their papers. Well, I mean, frankly, there's a lot of conversations right now about people using AI to help write bid responses, right? So, yeah, procurement's not immune to these sorts of things. And so I'm certain we'll continue to see emerging tech impact public procurement, which in turn will impact cooperative purchasing contracts. But exactly what that looks like, I'm not certain. But yeah, I'm definitely expecting to see just more and more spend going through contracts like these.
Yeah, I think the changing landscape of everything, what we have our hands in, changes so quickly now. It's like, how do I always ask the question, like, what do you see the future? Like, well, no one really knows, because tomorrow could be a new piece of tech that like helps our jobs just be complete so quickly. Well, at least we have something to look forward to. Nick, we have reached the end of my questions on my side. Is there anything I didn't cover today that you want to shout at me? Anything you want to cover real quick?
So I guess the big thing that I would offer, Gage, is that especially at Sourcewell, one of the things that we pride ourselves at is being a partner for everyone who's involved in our contract side of it, or usage, whether it's the suppliers or the agencies themselves. And so I would say, one, if you're a solid waste director or maybe even a public procurement officer who's listening in today and you're thinking, well, I'm interested, but I have a lot more I need to learn about this before we started moving forward, reach on out to us. We're super happy to have those conversations and discuss whatever you want to help you get a better understanding of what we're doing and how our contracts work for you. Our website is sourcewell-mn, like the state of Minnesota, .gov. And right on our website, you'll find easy links to reach out to us and ask your questions. So don't hesitate that way. And if you're a supplier as well, whether maybe you're a dealer who's listening in and you carry some brands that have a Sourcewell contract, and you're thinking, well, I know Sourcewell is available to me because my folks, at the manufacturer have told me several times, but I probably need to dig into this a little bit more before I talk to customers about it. Great, reach out. Happy to have those conversations. Or if you're a company that doesn't have a cooperative contract and wants to see what it'd be like to get one, we're happy to, all the way around. We'll discuss it, whatever you want with you and try to get you pointed in the right direction.
Excellent. Nick, are you in Minnesota yourself?
I am, yeah.
Are you a Vikings fan?
Let's not talk about it, Gage.
Okay. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. All right, Nick, that's the end of the episode here. Thank you for joining me. I was going to ask you to plug the website. Okay, what's the URL one more time for everyone at home?
Is www.sourcewell-mn, like the state of Minnesota, .gov.
Excellent. Nick, thank you so much for joining us or joining me this week on the Waste World podcast. I look forward to what's going on in the future with Sourcewell, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Gage.
I'd like to thank Nick again for joining me today and breaking down how Sourcewell's cooperative purchasing model works and how it's helping both agencies and suppliers in the waste and recycling space. Listeners, if you want to learn more, I guess I need to come up with a better name for you guys than just listeners. Sound like faceless people out there. I don't know. We'll come up with something. Anyway, if you want to learn more about Sourcewell, visit sourcewell-mn.gov. That's sourcewell-mn as in Minnesota.gov to explore available contracts. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the Waste World podcast wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever your preference podcasting service is. Make sure you never miss a conversation with the people shaping the waste and recycling industry. Your support, of course, goes into us having these awesome guests come on the show and explain to you what they do and the benefits that they serve in the waste and recycling industry and sustainability. So throw us a bone, make sure you hit that subscribe button, rate 5 stars, leave a review, whatever it is. I'll check it out and I'll say, hey, thanks, listener. All right, let's wrap this up. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and remember, it's our world. Let's not waste it.